In this video on fractions, we're going to be looking at adding and subtracting, and we're going to have a focus on mixed numbers. So here's an example to start us off. We've got 1.5 plus 2 2/3. So in general, when we're trying to work with mixed numbers, it's a good plan to turn them into improper fractions first of all. So that's the first thing we're going to do in this question. So take a second to turn both of these mixed numbers into improper fractions. Okay, so 1.5 is going to be 3/2, and 2 2/3 is going to be 8/3. And I want to add these two fractions together. So the next thing that I need to do is I need to get a lowest common denominator. So again, that means looking at the 2 and the 3 and seeing what the smallest number is that they'll both go into. And in this case, that's 6. So I'm going to change both of these fractions so that they're over 6, that 6 is their denominator. And then of course I need to make the commensurate changes to their numerators. So let's have a look what happened with 3/2. Well, the denominator 2 got multiplied by 3 to make it be 6, so the exact same thing must happen to the numerator. And of course 3 by 3 is 9. So that first fraction is 9/6. On we go so to 8/3. This needs to be over 6 as well. And we get that 6 by timesing 3 by 2. So the top, the numerator, 8, must also get times by 2. And that's going to give me 16. And now I've got two fractions that have a common denominator, so I can add them together. Remember that when you're adding, you're just adding the numerators. So we've got 25/6, and this is an improper fraction. And since the question was presented to us with mixed numbers, it's just good manners to put our answer back as a mixed number again. So let's change 25/6 into a mixed number. What would it be? Well, it would be 4 1/6. Job done. Okay, so here's a question for you. 4 3/5 plus 2 2/3. Pause the video here, give a go at this, and then play it and see if you're correct. Okay, so first step is sorting out our improper fractions, and that's 23/5 plus 8/3. Now we find our lowest common denominator. That's 15, because that's the smallest thing that 5 and 3 will both go into. We write our two fractions down as something over 15, and then we check and see what we need to multiply by. In the first fraction, 5 got times by 3, so 23 also gets times by 3. That gives 69. And in the second fraction, 3 got times by 5 to make the 15, so 8 must also get times by 5, and that gives us 40. And now that we have two fractions with a common denominator, off we go to add. So that's going to give us 109/15. And again, I'd like to change this from an improper fraction back into a mixed number. You can do this bit of calculation in your rough work. And it comes out as 7 4/15. Okay, here's a second question for you. 1 5/8 plus 3 3/4 minus 2 1/2. So pause this video here, have a go at the question, and then play and see if you're correct. So our first step is going to be writing all of these as improper fractions. So 13/8 and 15/4 minus 5/2. Now let's think about the lowest common denominator. So there's a few numbers that might work here as a denominator. You could maybe go for 64 or 32 or 16, but we'd like to go for the lowest available one, and that's actually 8 in this case. And it's 8 because 8 will go into 8, and 4 will go into 8, and 2 will also go into 8, so it's the smallest thing they'll all go into. And that just saves us a whole heap of cancelling down later on. So my three fractions are all going to be over 8. Let's see what changes we need to make. Well, the first fraction, actually its denominator didn't change at all, so there's no need to change the numerator. I can leave it exactly as is. In the second fraction, I need to multiply 4 by 2 to get the denominator of 8, so again 15 by 2, and that's going to give me 30. And then in the last fraction, I need to multiply 2 by 4 to get the required denominator of 8, so 5 by 4 also, and I'm going to have 20/8. And now it's just straightforward adding and subtracting. 13 and 30 is 43, take away 20 is 23. And since the question presented us with mixed numbers, it's good manners to go back into mixed numbers again in the answer. And so my final answer can be 2 7/8. And just before we finish up, a little note, always take a moment to have a think about the lowest common denominator. Go for the smallest denominator that you possibly can. It just makes things easier in the long run.